Alright, good evening folks, it's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to another short war video, and today we have some very big news from around the world, and let's jump right into it. And starting off with our biggest news of the day, we've learned new details about the upcoming meeting with Vladimir Putin in Alaska that has many concern, including Ukraine themselves. We've also seen a massive Ukrainian attack on one of Russia's largest cruise missile facilities in Nizhny Novgorod, and some truly wild footage from the ground. Meanwhile, secret Russian documents have leaked showing a massive secret GPS jamming station in Kaliningrad, and probably one of the biggest leaks of the decade. We've also gotten news out of China as they've collided and destroyed one of their own vessels in the South China Sea after trying to illegally chase vessels out of the region. And we also have news out of Iran about a major water crisis causing the Iranian president to beg for help on national television. So we've gotten some wild news from around the world, and let's jump right into our first article, which goes to Polymarket Intel. And this right here is some of our biggest news of the day. Right now we're hearing that Vladimir Putin plans to demand Ukraine quit NATO, disarm, and pull back from 4 partly occupied regions in peace talks with Trump in Alaska, according to recent reports, and he may allow Kyiv to keep Kherson and Zaporizhia if Russia gets a corridor to Crimea. So I must admit, this is not a very good start to the Alaska meeting, because it sounds like Vladimir Putin's going to make some very unreasonable requests of Ukraine and basically demand that they quit NATO and also disarm their military and then pull back from all these regions, which they've been fighting very heavily for over the last 3 years. So that does not sound like a reasonable start to negotiations, and pretty much that was what we were expecting at this point. We were not expecting Putin to go into this with an open mind, and of course it sounds like he's still with this bad mindset that he already had to begin with. So not very high hopes right now for the Alaska meeting, but this is apparently the start of it from Vladimir Putin's side, so not good to hear. But moving into our next article here, this one goes to us on Twitter at It's the Enforcer. We've also heard today in a very lengthy press conference from the United States President that he's made some statements regarding this upcoming meeting in Alaska, and the US President says he's going to try to get some territory back for Ukraine at the upcoming Alaska meeting, but he's not really sure if that's going to be able to be accomplished. So let's take a listen to our first clip here and hear what the US President had to say about this exact topic.
Occupied a big portion of Ukraine. They've occupied some very prime territory. We're going to try and get some of that territory back for Ukraine.
So there you can hear the US President saying that he's going to try to get some of the territory back that Russia's taken and give it back to Ukraine. But the problem here is he's also expecting Ukraine to give up land to Russia as well to come to a peace deal. And remember, this is just for a ceasefire. This is not to actually end the war entirely. This is just for a maybe a 30-day ceasefire. We're not really sure exactly what the term is going to be for the ceasefire right now. But we are hearing the president is trying to at least get some land back for Ukraine. But I really doubt this is going to go anywhere, because Zelensky's already stated he does not have the constitutional power to hand over land to Russia, even if he wanted to do so, and also the Ukrainians really don't want to hand over land whatsoever. So it's already a non-starter on the Ukrainian end, and also on the Russian end, they're making wild requests. So it sounds like it's going nowhere, but right now that's what we're hearing from the US President on that issue. But also, we have another post here, and the President made a separate statement indicating that if he believes Vladimir Putin is not negotiating in good faith, that he may decide to simply say, I'm going to walk from the meeting, tell Vladimir Putin good luck, and say that the war can't be settled. So that's also what he's saying. So that is a bit of a reasonable statement there. At least he's willing to walk away if it's not going to go anywhere, but you know, that will have to be seen when this meeting actually takes place. But let's hear a listen to this clip as well and hear what the president had to say this time.
Go and see the parameters. Now I may leave and say good luck, and that'll be the end. I may say this is not going to be settled. I mean, there are those that believe that Putin wanted all of Ukraine. I happen to be one of them, by the way. I think if it weren't for me, he would not be even talking to anybody else right now. But I'm going to meet with him. We're going to see what the parameters are. I'm then going to call up President Zelensky and the European leaders.
So there you can hear it. The US President is basically saying in a nutshell that he's willing to walk away, like I mentioned. So we'll have to wait and see on that one, but it does sound to be at least a reasonable statement on his face. But whether or not it pans out to be that way, we'll have to see in practice. But that is the statement. But moving on here from this post and on to our next one, this one goes to Max25. And Europe is still not convinced about this entire Alaska meeting right now. And right now, the US is vowing to consult with Europe ahead of the Putin meeting in Alaska, according to the Polish Prime Minister Tusk. And he also said the importance of preserving Ukraine's integrity is not only a matter of solidarity with our neighbor, but also of our own security as well. So Poland, being one of the major regional powerhouses militarily in the region, is also very concerned that maybe the US is going to pressure Ukraine to give away land to Putin that they probably should not give away in the first place. So that is currently the story coming out of Poland and Europe as a whole about this entire situation. But moving on to our next post here, this one goes to Visegrad24, and we're also learning that apparently the meeting between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump in Alaska may take place in the city of Girdwood in Alaska, and according to the local publication Alaska Landmine, the Alaska Resort Hotel is being considered for the meeting, and at the moment, it's impossible to book accommodation at the hotel on August 14th and 15th, which matches the expected dates of the meeting, and Girdwood is a resort town in the southern part of the municipality of Anchorage, Alaska. So it sounds like Anchorage might be the location for the meeting, and there is a picture right there showing that resort, and obviously it's a very beautiful place, by the way, and it looks like it might be a very diplomatic spot to have a meeting, so this might turn out to be the location, but we're going to have to wait and see for the moment. But that is the preliminary information we're hearing about the location. But moving into our next post here, this one goes to OSINT Technical. And moving away from our news about the U.S. negotiations with Russia about Ukraine, we've gotten some news coming out of Russia right now that they are getting absolutely slammed by the Ukrainian drone attacks. And this morning we've heard that the Ukrainian attack drone successfully hit Russia's Arzamas instrument building plant this morning, which is a key electronics manufacturer for the Russian aerospace industry, and the plant is currently under heavy international sanctions for its role in Russian cruise missile production. So we can see right here in our first image, there is some massive damage to the side of that building right there. It looks like it's been completely demolished right here on this column of windows, and you can see some significant damage right there. But we've gotten some videos of this attack which are wild to see, so let's jump right into our next post, which goes to Anton Jeroshenko, where we see our very first video. So let's take a look. And right here you can see a massive hit to the side of that missile building right there, and wake up and smell the bankruptcy, because I think the bankruptcy is going to be setting in here. There was a humongous hit right there, and apparently that is the location which we just saw the damage in our still picture a moment ago, and that was how large the hit was. So this was one angle of the attack, but we have another angle here in our second post, which goes to Status 6 Military and Conflict News, and apparently a local man who happened to be jogging down the road caught this moment on camera, and I want to emphasize this was a very deep strike into Russia. This was over 700 kilometers from the border with Ukraine. So let's take a look at this video. This guy on the street happened to capture it in its entirety, so let's take a look. So you see there's Ivan screaming and yelling. He hears the drone coming in, and you're about to see it in just a second. And there it is. And you can't see it from this angle, but you could actually see there was the exact final descent moment right there before it hit the building, and Ivan appears to have calmed down a little bit now that he sees it's actually made impact. So that was a wild piece of footage right there, this guy jogging down the street and seeing that right there, and that was literally the initial moments of final descent of the drone before it hit this building, which is associated with cruise missile production inside of Russia. But with that, we're now moving on to our next piece of news here, and this one goes to OSINT Technical, and we've also gotten another piece of footage showing the aftermath of this attack and showing multiple points of impact. So let's take a look at our third video. So there you can see it. There's the location of that still image we saw earlier, and also over here on the right you're about to see there's a second impact point which clearly went straight through the concrete on the roof of the building and made a huge hole in the top of the roof. So it looks like I said, multiple points of impact, and that this building has had some significant damage which may set back the cruise missile production quite a bit for this manufacturing facility. So once again, a very big hit. But with that, we're moving on to our next article here, and this one goes to Military News Ukraine, and also wake up and smell the bankruptcy for Russia yet again. We've gotten some more bad news about the Russian economy, and today we're learning that approximately 20% of Russian developers are at risk of bankruptcy, according to the Russian Deputy Prime Minister, and if the high key rate remains for another 6 months and there is no inflow of investment, this share may exceed 30%. So this is crazy. A huge swath of Russian developers are at risk of complete bankruptcy, and it could rise to 30% of them declaring bankruptcy in just a couple more months. So this is a terrible sign. We're already hearing of more Russian companies cutting down their work weeks because they can't afford to keep the workers on full time, and it sounds like the Russian economy is on its knees right now. So it's a really, really precarious situation for Russia as a whole, and it's getting only worse as the days go by. So nobody's really sure how much longer the Russian economy has left on it, but one thing's for certain, it looks like their time is growing near for a reckoning with their economy as a whole, according to all this information. But jumping into our next article here, this one goes to Geo Insider, and we have a bombshell report about a massive secret documents leak coming out of Russia involving Kaliningrad. And we have learned today that a news outlet has managed to obtain classified documents revealing Russia's Tabal electronic warfare system in Kaliningrad, which is responsible for GPS jamming across the Baltic region, and the files, leaked by sources inside Russia to dissident Vladimir Oreshkin's Galagu.net, detail Tabal's capabilities, which surpass other mobile jamming units like the Polo 21 and the Zytel. So this is a massive massive leak right here. So apparently, if these documents are indeed true, this does prove that Kaliningrad is the home to a major GPS jamming facility, which is the cause for apparently all the anomalies that we're seeing in the region. And we've known for a long time that Russia is conducting these jamming operations, but we didn't know exactly what building they were emanating from, nor how it was being conducted and which piece of equipment was responsible for it. But now we are learning that apparently this is the one right here, and it's right in Kaliningrad, and we've learned that thanks to all these secret documents leaking out today. So this is a bombshell revelation, and we're waiting to see some more details about these documents and some more details from the journalists that found them in the first place. So this is a huge revelation indeed. But moving on to our next article here, this one goes to Max 25. We've also gotten some more news today that Finland has become the first NATO country to bring charges against the captain and crew of a Russian Shadow Fleet vessel that had severed underwater cables in the Baltic Sea. And apparently, this one right here is a major move. The Finnish Coast Guard in December 2024 boarded and seized the Eagle S oil tanker after the vessel dragged its anchor through the Baltic Sea for almost 100 kilometers, cutting 5 electricity and telecommunications cables. And the captain and first and second officers, who were first arrested and then set free, provided they did not leave Finland, have now been charged with aggravated vandalism and aggravated interference with telecommunications, and the trial could start in the next few weeks. So this is a very big deal, like I mentioned, because Finland will be the first country to actually prosecute these individuals for allegedly sabotaging these undersea cables. So if this turns out to be a real deal and they actually prosecute these individuals and also convict them, that could be something which causes another rift between Russia and the NATO countries that we're hearing about right now. So I'll be very interested to see how this turns out and how this pans out for Finland as a whole. But jumping into our next post here, this one goes to Military News Ukraine. We're also getting some more news today that apparently Russia is now threatening Moldova yet again with war and loss of sovereignty over their desire to join NATO. And the Secretary of the Security Council of Russia, Shoigu, stated that the allegedly negative example of Ukraine does not stop the reapproachment of the Chisinau regime with NATO, and these actions lead to the loss of Moldova's sovereignty. So right now we're hearing Shoigu, which is, I thought he had gone away for a while, but apparently he's back. He's now threatening Moldova that they will apparently get their sovereignty taken away and basically invaded by Russia if they try to join NATO. So it sounds like a repeat of the Ukraine situation, and Russia is going full-fledged into it yet again, this time with Moldova. But I'll be honest, at this point, this is pretty much run-of-the-mill for the Russian officials, so nothing too crazy, but once again, Moldova is being threatened. But jumping into our next post here, this one goes to Guy Elster, and we've gotten some big news coming out of the South China Sea about a big screw-up that the Chinese Coast Guard has conducted on their own vessels. But first off, before we get to the big blunder, let's get to the backstory. Right now we're hearing that China's Coast Guard said it took necessary measures to expel Philippine vessels from waters around Scarborough Shoal in the South China Sea, and the Coast Guard said in a statement that it monitored and intercepted the Philippine vessels after they ignored warnings and forced them away from the waters in an operation it said was professional, standardized, legitimate, and legal. But I have a plot twist for you. This was not professional, it was not standardized, and it was also completely illegal as well. And also, China messed up so bad that they've actually destroyed one of their own vessels in the process of trying to run off these Philippine vessels from the South China Sea. And this is a blunder of magnificent proportions, and honestly, it sounds like instant karma and instant justice. But jumping into our next post here, this one goes to Ocean Defender, and we've gotten our first piece of footage here showing something really bad happening between the Chinese vessels. And we can see here in the post that while attempting to chase and corner a patrol boat with the Philippine Coast Guard, apparently a ship with the China Coast Guard collided with a Type 52 destroyer of the Chinese People's Liberation Army Navy, and the incident reportedly caused substantial damage to the CCG vessel, rendering it unseaworthy, with offers of assistance by the Philippine Coast Guard being ignored by the Chinese. So after the Chinese Coast Guard rammed their own vessels, the Philippine Coast Guard, which was the ones being harassed by the Chinese vessels that just got damaged severely, they turned around and tried to help the Chinese vessels, and then they got ignored completely. So this was an embarrassing blunder all the way around. So let's take a look at the footage here and see the Coast Guard vessels of China ramming into each other and destroying one of their ships. And there you can see it. Holy crap. There was a destroyer. That vessel you just saw coming into frame right there was a Chinese People's Army Navy destroyer that was literally crossing over the bow of the Chinese Coast Guard vessel, and the guy filming here is on the Philippine vessel. So as you can see, this was bad right here. It looks like that destroyer rammed and just cut straight through the front of that Chinese Coast Guard vessel, and this right here is a big blunder. While they were trying to harass the Philippine vessels, they literally destroyed their own. So once again, it is embarrassing to see for the Chinese right there, and that is quite remarkable to see, and also instant karma as well for those Chinese vessels. But moving into our next post here, we got some more footage here showing this incident, so let's take a look. So as you can see, that clearly says China Coast Guard on the side of that vessel, and this was the one involved in that collision, and that bow does not look right. That looks like it's been crumpled in like a tin can. And you can see they're on the deck trying to survey the damage. Look at that. I mean, that is some bad damage right there. That vessel has been basically destroyed. The front of the bow has been completely crumpled in, and that destroyer is built like a tank because the Coast Guard vessel got jacked up, but the destroyer apparently just took off into the wild blue sea out here. So this right here is no good. It's surprising it didn't sink. It looks like it's still afloat. Maybe it might sink, but it's hard to tell. But that is some severe damage right there being filmed here from this Philippine vessel right after these Chinese vessels got done harassing them. So quite crazy to see. And also in our next post here, we've gotten some up close pictures of this incident. There is the Chinese Coast Guard vessel. The front of it just like completely caved in. It looks like Play-Doh or something. This is crazy. I've never seen anything like that with a ship being cracked like that. But as you can see right here, there's another angle of the destroyer going past it. And I mean, this is just like, there's really no words for it except for this is embarrassing for the Chinese. And maybe they should stop harassing vessels, and maybe this won't happen. Maybe that'll fix the whole issue if they stop harassing people in the South China Sea. But anyways, that is all the news on that whole situation right there. And moving on to our next article here, this one goes to Polymarket Intel, and we've also gotten some embarrassing news out of Iran as well, because right now the Iranian president is on TV begging for help as there's a major water crisis breaking out across Iran. And we can see here the Iranian president says, "We are facing a severe, unimaginable water crisis, and if anyone has a solution, they should come forward. And sadly, we have no option but to shut off the water." So Iran is having a very, very bad crisis right now. Apparently they are out of water across their country, especially in Tehran, and this is going to cause a humanitarian crisis as well. So the Iranian president is freaking out. He's not sure how to handle this, and that is the situation. But we also have more news here in our next post, which goes to Clash Report, that the Iranian president went even further and started begging on national television. He said, "We don't have water, and we don't have water under our feet, and we don't have water behind the dam, and tell me what to do," he says. He said, "Someone come and tell me what I should do." So you'll rarely ever hear a president ever saying that they don't know what to do. So clearly this guy's in a fit right here while he has the Ayatollahs behind his head right here on the wall, and the Ayatollah is missing. The Ayatollah is not weighing into the situation at all because he can't have his hands dirtied by this whole situation with the water crisis. So he's got the president out here begging to everybody, basically begging to enemies, begging to friends, anybody that's willing to help about trying to fix this water issue. And if you want to know why he's begging so bad, let's jump into our next post here. This one goes to Phytux Network. This is the photo that's being released by Iranian state media showing the water dried up in the reservoir. Over there on the left, that shows you the reservoir when it's actually full, and over here on the right, here's the current state of the water reservoir near Tehran. There is no water left in that reservoir. Like, this is actually a serious problem, and it looks like the citizens of Iran are going to be out of water until the Iranians find a way to get more water into their area. So I'm not sure really what has led to this, to be honest with you, but it looks like they're creating a huge crisis that someone's going to have to help them out with. Maybe if Iran would stop fighting with everybody, maybe they'd get some help from somebody, but right now, they are on their own. But moving into our next post here, this one goes to Conflict Radar. And also, we've gotten another crisis, this time out of Iraq, because while Iran's having their water problem, we're also hearing that Iraq's electricity ministry says it's operating in full emergency mode to restore power within hours, and the electricity ministry urges cutting unnecessary electricity use amid high temperatures. So we are seeing here apparently a full-scale power outage across Iraq, and we're being told it's due to high temperatures, but we're really not sure why this is the case. But Iraq is telling people to cut the power usage if they can because they are completely running out of power due to some issues with the grid. So not good for Iraq and not good for Iran either. But moving into our next post here, this one goes to Insider Paper. And we have some news coming out about India. Right now we're hearing that Air India is to suspend Washington flights from September the 1st. And I'll be honest, I'm not really sure what's causing this either. I can only assume it's because of the tensions between the US officials and the Indian government that maybe they're doing this, but we're really not sure. But right now we're hearing that Air India is apparently, at least allegedly, going to suspend their flights from September the 1st to Washington. So not really sure why that is, like I said, and I'm waiting to hear more details about it to get the full story about why this is the case. But with that, folks, that is actually our last piece of news of the video. So before you go, smack the like button if you found the video informative, and also subscribe to the channel as well to get more daily war updates just like this one in real time. And also, by the way, thank you all for watching this point in the video. If you've watched to this point, go down to the comments below and put LSA, the 3 letters, LSA, to let us know that you watched the video to this point. And also, by the way, if you want to support the channel financially, you can do so on our Patreon. Patreon page, and the link is in the description below for our Patreon, where you can sign up for a monthly subscription, and it can be as little as $5 a month. Any amount helps the channel tremendously, and we appreciate that support very, very much. And we will see you all tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern on our next Nightly War News stream, and with that, bye-bye for now.